All right. Welcome, everybody, back to our next conversation. This is part three in Dawn's conversations about death, about grief, about loss, and all the things. Today, I have the wonderful Lashanna, who is a death doula. I had such a hard time nailing this part of the conversation. I had one person on the East Coast, and she bailed on me, and I had to go all the way to the West Coast to find somebody willing to have this conversation with me. So, if you're looking for a new job and death does not scare you, perhaps a death doula is on your list of things to do. However, Lashanna, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you for holding the space this morning, and thank you for having me. My name is Lashanna Williams. I was grown in Detroit, but currently live in Seattle, the territory of the Duwamish people, the Coast Salish people. I am a death doula, and I'm a massage therapist and a community death care educator, which the community education is really the part that I like to focus on, because I feel like it's the most important part. My death care is definitely important, but community education around death care is a form of death care. That as soon as people understand their rights and what they can do, the need for death doulas kind of dissipates. Yeah. So that's a little snippet about me, but we'll talk more about all that stuff, I'm certain.
Absolutely. So I am very, very curious your journey to this place, this space.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, I'm a massage therapist, and I had many clients in elder care facilities, and in in this space, I just realized like the lack of touch that people were receiving. Not just a lack of touch, but a lack of touch that was not investigative. It was always one way, like, let me take your temperature. Does this hurt? Like someone was always getting this information from this person. And there was nothing reciprocal. There was nothing, I mean, people were very warm and kind and friendly, but there was no warmth in the engagement. And like so many blind spots, once you see, you can't unsee. And so then it sort of just became this like ripple effect while I was realizing like these people are dying in ways that suck. We could do better. We used to do better. Why don't we do better? And so I started studying under a woman in Bellingham. And well, actually, the funny story is I discovered the woman in Bellingham because a friend of mine said, let's go be birth doulas. And I was like, um, okay. I mean, I'll take the training with you. Like if you need a buddy. And a mentor of ours was like, so Lashanna, no, like I wouldn't hire you as a birth doula. I was like, thank you. Me either. Because I would be like, push. And and so we had a wonderful giggle, and it was like, no. She's like, but there's death doulas, and I was like, oh, fuck off, really? And so I looked and found Ashley, and studied under Ashley for a few years, and did my own thing in community, and started to just explore. And then in 2017, Ashley gave me the nonprofit A Sacred Passing.
Mhm.
And since then, we've been able to just kind of do amazing things.
Right. I went through that website, right? And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. Why don't we have things like this everywhere?
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Because and I will link to all the things, but if you go to the website, it is like, and go through the people, like they're all amazing people, like, oh, I want to know all of them.
Yeah.
And like, but everybody's a little bit different, and I was like, oh, all the things they bring to this death table, to this whole part is amazing. Like I was like, why isn't this a thing? Because I want that around me when I'm going. Right? I want all these really super interesting people who aren't going to be afraid to be around me, who are being their authentic selves. And if I'm having a really bad, horrible fucking day, they're going to have a really bad, horrible fucking day with me and not try and change that day. Right? Like, I was like, how that's how I want to go out. Please, I don't want anybody in my room who looks at me for hours with that pity face.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. No, be with me here right now.
Yeah.
So how does this differ, and how is this enmeshed with hospice work?
Yeah. When it works, and when everybody sets ego aside, we are a care team. We work together. Hospice has access and skills and knowledge in which maybe a death doula does not. But the most important separation is the medical aspect. Like, we are non-medical. We get to hold that space of like, actually, I don't know that answer. Let's go figure it out. And without that medical hat, there creates access. Like, we become porous for conversations and emotions in which folks typically don't bring up with medical professionals, because it's the medical professional, right? It's that person with all of this education and training. And like, I don't want to poo-poo education or training. Like, I mean, I'm a massage therapist. I'm a home healthcare aide. And I understand the need for education, but in this country, we have the most fucked up view of how we get our education.
I was just having this conversation last night.
Yeah, like, we have dismissed the fact that experience and life is one of the most amazing educators. And we have put this like thousands upon thousands unobtainable structured college education that I know. I mean, I paid $70,000 for my degree from U of M, and my partner teases me all the time. He's like, "Oh, do you know this author?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "How did we go through the same program?" I'm like, I don't know. I had a baby. Like, my brain was somewhere else. Like, I didn't get the same things for the same amount of money. But my life, the life that I've lived, and the people that I talk to and listen to and learn from, like, my whole body is full of all of this knowledge from people and from living. And so we get to bring that with us too, as a non-medical professional.
I love that. I love that so much, because that's what these conversations, this whole series that I'm doing is all about. Not just, this 3-part series in it. I started doing them on a whim, and I was like, oh my God, I found my jam. Conversations with people about how they're doing their life around a particular topic, right? Because this has been my mantra for about a month and a half. There's more than one way to do every damn thing, right? Which is what I think is the most exciting part about being in this goddamn world, is that there's more than one way to do everything. Yeah. Everything. And why aren't more people curious? Like, I am so curious, lifelong learner, but that doesn't mean I'm in school. It means, man, I am deeply curious about every person.
I feel like, oops, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, even the really like hostile, grumpy ones, like, I wish I could just get enough there to have the conversation to find out, what did somebody do to you? Why are you so sad? Right? Because anger is just an expression of deep sadness. So why are you so sad? What happened to you?
Yeah.
I think conversation is the most unappreciated skill and tool we have.
That and listening.
Right.
This idea that there's one way, I think, is just this product of capitalism, right? We're living in late stage capitalism. But the idea of, this is how you do this, and then you'll go do these things. And if you want to do this, you'll do these things. Like, that's for productivity. That's for some white man in some fucking corner office making a buck. That's not for our personal growth. That's for the pocket and the bank account of some man in office.
Were you in my house last night when I was having this conversation? Because I was like, no. School has never been about bettering us. It's always been about making us productivity workers
Yeah.
for somebody else's bank account, not us, but somebody else's bank account.
Yeah.
Um,
there's some amazing organizations and educational units, right? Where people are really teaching authentically from inside. But there are far more institutions that have been created and upheld to perpetuate this productivity and this, like, here you go, good human, do the thing.
yeah. So when you're doing your work, how does it fit into those of us who are going to be left behind?
So how do we work with folks who are dealing with a loss or a death,
or even the process of somebody dying? Because it was very hard for me when my husband was dying, because it happened so quickly and it was messy.
Yeah.
How to keep myself, because it happened so quickly. There were so many emotions I was having. Like, I was in shock. I was in the middle of the accident with him. And by that, I don't mean to mislead anybody. We weren't in a car wreck or something, but that's the way it felt at the time. Like we were, that car was rolling and it was going off the cliff. We were doing that together, except he wasn't going to get out of the car at the end. And I was trying not to bring all of that into that space. I was like, I'll have time to crash and burn. But it was so, that was a lot. Right. And I was at the top of a twirly mountain in a little cottage with him without, I could walk outside, but it wasn't like I had a block to walk down and people that I'd run into.
Yeah.
This was a car wreck. I was essentially, except at the very end, walking it alone. How could a death doula have helped in this situation, I guess, would be my question.
Well, when we have the privilege of time, may it be a week, 2 months, a year, but when we are not dealing with a traumatic sudden death, an accident, the first thing that I do with folks is we create a plan. We sit down and we'll spend a couple of hours talking about before someone dies and after someone dies. We talk about the nuance of that blurry line between being pain-free and lucidity. Like where and what is important to you. When we move you and rotate you and you wince, do you want us to make sure that you then get more medicine so that you're not wincing, because that's a sign of some pain. And so we talk about all kinds of things. And of course, we don't talk about everything, because when you're in it, you're like, oh shit, we didn't talk about this. But we really, we get like octopus legs into the corners and the round corners of the ways that things can happen, and really have a discussion. We talk about who is okay being here and who is not okay being here. So many of us are survivors of physical and sexual and mental abuse that, like, actually, I don't want that person in the room. I don't care if they're family. And sometimes it might be like, so I know that that's going to cause a whole bunch of shit. So don't leave me alone with that person. Just make sure I'm not alone. If I'm not alone, I'm good. So really talking about all the nuance that exists. Talking about life-sustaining treatment, doing some grief processing together, like understanding that you can be that rock right now, but it's really important to engage in your feelings. And maybe that looks like a conversation. It might look like art. It might look like wailing with someone. It might look like being held. It might look like dancing, cooking.
Oh.
Right? It just looks like so many different things that
Mm-hmm.
people are addicted to the stages of grief. And that's just not, it's a myth. It should go along with Hansel and Gretel. Like, it doesn't exist. And I should say Prince Charming. It just doesn't exist. And the sooner that we like untangle ourselves from this like linear process, like the healthier we will be, because we will access our grief in ways that are like meaningful to us as an individual, and the person who died, and also like an acknowledgement that the grief that we experience today is so layered and compounded. It's not necessarily just our grief. We have grief of our ancestors. We have grief of like all these little griefs, especially during COVID.
Oh my gosh, that's what I've been trying to explain to people. Like, if you've already been through trauma prior to COVID, the onion layers of trauma upon trauma happening and is unreal.
Yeah. The lack of mobility, right? Lack of touch. All of the things that folks are feeling, and like scarcity of, our income just disappearing. Someone telling us to get the fuck out of our house because we can't pay rent. Well, it's not my fault. I can't move, or I can't work. All of these things that people are experiencing. Humans in cages. We don't process those often on an individual level, let alone a communal level. And that's where grief is processed. Like, we need to process our grief.
Right. It's funny you brought up dancing, because that's how I dealt with things afterwards. Mm-hmm. So my husband died in the middle of September, and literally I was on the top of a little twirly mountain down in Westchester, New York. And when I would go out at night, there are no street lights. And it was less than 900 square foot little cottage we lived in, but the driveway, you could fit like 10 cars in it. Right. And it was flat. And I'd go out there with my headphones and I'd put on music and I would dance my butt off until I was drenched in sweat. And this is like in the winter. Right. And under that expansive, starry, clear winter sky. And I would just dance and dance and dance until I was exhausted and I could put myself to bed. Mm-hmm. And I often wonder, did anybody ever see me doing that? Like, what did they think was happening? But when I was in it, I was like, it was, for me, and when I was doing it, it was moving things literally out of my body, releasing things out of my body in a way that I couldn't find to do otherwise alone in that cottage in the middle of winter. Conversations on the phone are one thing, but that was visceral for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Movement. We forget like that's my ancestry. That's part of our grief processing. We move and we dance and we wail, right? There's an understanding that this lives in our body, and we have to move it, and it doesn't necessarily leave, but it has to move. It can't be stagnant.
There's a part of me that is how I'm wired. I can remember when I was a child, and one summer, my mother threw me and my sisters into a Baptist Bible school for the week. It was the happiest I ever was. I was like, oh, this is not church. I've never been to a church where this happens. Mm-hmm. If it was, I wouldn't hate it so much. Right? Yeah. I was like, oh my God, they're up, they're down, everybody's doing their own thing. I was like, where's this been all my life? This feels like an experience. The other thing feels like a prison. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, so like that doesn't ever scare me. I know that I've seen other people see that process that you describe and go, oh my God, get a grip. Like, oh, how embarrassing. And I'm thinking to myself, oh man, no, not so much. That we should all have the permission to let things out. Otherwise, we're just dragging them around with us wherever we go.
And I'm going to hang on that for a second, because I think we do have permission to let things out as long as they don't make people uncomfortable, right? Oh, if you're happy, share that joy, spread it. Like, there's all of this. Let's talk about all of the good things, but when they start making people uncomfortable, just like talks about racism and bias, right? Oh, that's a little bit uncomfortable, but I don't want to talk about that right now. You know, like, it's only the things that make the rooms comfortable. Fuck that.
Right. Yes. And thank you for bringing that up, because that is, you know, I feel like there's a lot of active grief happening right now with everything that's happening. Right. Like just more trauma. In that elephant in the room that is racism. And I don't know how many people I've invited to please go back and rethink about deprogramming yourself. Just because this is the way it's always been in your life doesn't mean that it's okay, right? Like, really pull out that thing that you just said. Can we examine it? Where did it come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
People need to understand, like, if you are educated in this country, in the last, and anybody living today, if you have been educated in this country and you are grown in this country, you have been absolutely programmed in a way that is harmful to people of color, to Indigenous folks. The erasure, just the bullshit that is throughout our history books, that is throughout our language that we use. You know, we talk about white lies. A white lie, oh, that's not harmful. No, like the things, black magic, don't touch black magic. You know, like the things in our life that are threaded with this fucking bias. And if people could recognize, like, okay, this is not a reflection on me. I'm going to pause, be open to re-educating and retraining myself. It's at that point when people are like, oh no, there's nothing wrong with me. Then it becomes an absolute fucking reflection upon you.
Right.
Right. Like, it's that point when you're like, no, I have nothing to learn. I have no changes to make. Everything is fine. Well, yeah, then it's a kind of a reflection on you.
Right. And I think we have to be open to asking the hard questions. So here I am, mostly silver now, but I was born blonde haired, blue eyed, female. There is an amazing amount of privilege that goes with that. There are things that I know that I got to pass from in my life and in instances with law enforcement, etc. I know this. And while I would like to think that I am always trying to do the work to figure out how to make more of that gone from my life, I have to be open and hey, hi, how are you? Can you be quiet, please? It's okay. I have to be open and vulnerable enough to ask the hard questions and look stupid, and also like to be able to ask, is this a problem? Mm-hmm. Like, right? And be able to understand the answer and talk it through. And I think that's a step we have to make with a lot of these things. Like, how do we change what is happening around death and dying? We have to be able to say, how do we change this? Yeah. How do we make this better? I know it doesn't work. I know I have preconceived notions. I know it's been done like this and everybody's happy with this, but I'm not happy with this. How do I make this better? And death is a very personal thing, right? Whether it be yours or your person's. Yeah. And there's going to be a lot of people who are around who have their own needs. They are wrapped up in their own needs and wants in this person's death. Mm-hmm. How do we address and change those kinds of things?
That's where a doula is super important, and can be really helpful to the situation. Our depending on the relationship and how we came into this experience with the person who's dying. And one of our roles is really making sure that the space and the container is safe. So if you have an aunt who flew in and now is like causing some kerfluffle, she needs a job. So the doula, like a doula who is able to read a room and understand what's going on and understand what these other individuals are really needing, we're able to have this small conversation, like, and feel and realize, oh, okay, she needs to be productive. She needs to be doing something. So can you help me? We need 8 clean towels and 2 clean washcloths each day. Can you make me a stack in the linen closet so that we know right where to go? Okay, she's going to go do that. So really speaking to the ways that people feel valued and feel their value, and need to contribute is a way to make that inclusive, because before everybody had all these like robotic roles, everybody did that. Everybody did what they were good at. We were able to engage in the ways that our help felt meaningful. And so I think we need to pull that back in. And part of that re-education can come through doulas. I, like, for full transparency, like, my money-making venture in life is massage therapy. My doula work does not support me whatsoever. It is not, while it's on my business website, it is not part of my business, I find. Like, so going into this thinking, oh, I can make a living and do this, like, pump your brakes. It just doesn't happen. You need to combine this with some other things that you love that will also make your living for you. If we could work in outside of this, like, currency of the dollar, on a more sustainable basis, that's beautiful. I mean, I have clients who pay me with bread. I have clients who pay me with art, but that's because my massage business buffers this, right? So that aside, I am able to engage with people, like, just openly and really listen to what everybody needs, and re-educate and let them know, like, okay, do you want to stay home for a day or two after your death? Well, don't I have to call 911, and doesn't someone have to take me? Well, no, actually, let's talk about what your rights are. Here are your rights. These are the things that you can do. And you can also plan this and change your mind. Like, the freedom of choice is something that we have not expanded enough in this country. You can change your mind.
Right. And I am going to have to go through a grief process that this wasn't something that was in my life at the time that I needed it, because that would have been immensely helpful to feel like there are actually choices I still have that I can make in a situation that I had no control over. And when you're in it, like, to have somebody who recognizes that and can facilitate that, is huge. I could see the space where that needed to live at that time in my life, where it was okay to be all the things at any given time. That would have been wonderful. And to be able to facilitate not just my needs, but Marty's needs at the time, which didn't always jive with my needs at the time. Right?
Because we forget, like, we're all experiencing this dying process, but there is only one person dying. Like, they are working really fucking hard to die. Their body is working, their mind is working, their heart. And I think so often I don't like to say we. It's so funny. I've used it so many times today. Like, there is this perception that they're resting, they're quietly laying there in bed. No, they're fucking dying. Their body is working hard to do that. They're exhausted. Not to mention the like come-alongs that are tied to their spirit and their energy, pulling them back, like come back here, with all of the folks and the people and the things that they may want to like have more time with.
Right.
So yeah, we need to do better for the people who are dying and acknowledge the work that they're doing.
Right. Can you expand on that anymore? Because I feel like that's an important part. That person is lying in a bed. I think, like, I think that is something I don't think any of us have given thought to.
Yeah.
Right.
If I could frame it for a moment, like when children go through growth spurts, and we have this understanding for it, oh, their body must hurt, they're growing. Like, let's flip that. Oh, he's dying. All of these things must hurt or must be going through a process. To separate the end and the beginning is I'm trying to think of the right word. We can't separate the end and the beginning. They're so similar. And so to really be attentive and to listen to what that person is saying. What do they need? What do they want? Even if what they want isn't what you think they need, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you want. Like if you need a gravestone to go to, and this person wants to be cremated, it doesn't matter if you need a gravestone. You know what? You create your own space in a place that means something to you for you to go and visit. And when you're lucky and have the privilege of time, you get to talk about that with the person who's dying. You get to say, so I need a place to go to. Let's think of a place. Can we think of a place together? And then all of a sudden, it's so much more meaningful because you've had this conversation, and they're like, oh, and when you hear a woodpecker, think of me, right? So now you have this space and you have this story and this, like these audible and tangible things that there is a connection with the person who's died. And you've honored their wishes. They've been cremated. You have accessed what you need, which is a place to go. But really, really, really taking yourself out of it and understanding like you have all your own pain, you have all of the things that you're going to go through, but you are not dying. Finding some folks to support you outside of that person, so that you can say all of the things that you want to say. When you're fortunate, you have a doula that you can be like, let's go outside and have a coffee. I need to get this shit out. I don't understand why they're not listening to me. Well, let's go talk about it. Like, let's go talk. And sometimes just saying it does it.
Getting it out of your head. Yes. And oh, that hit me so hard. The cremation or what they want. My husband was from England, was from London. He moved over here to marry me. And he did not have much of a relationship with his family. And, he didn't communicate with them when he was dying. So it was news to them. And at the end, I had to deal with people who couldn't understand why I wasn't having a Catholic service. And they need that Catholic service. No, you can't cremate him. We haven't been over to do this, this, and this. I said, I'm really sorry. This is what he wanted, and I'm doing what he wanted. And they could not separate their wants and needs from that. Yeah. Which honestly, I'm the type of person that I just don't understand that at all. I don't understand how your needs take precedent over the person that died. Like, you are not the victim here.
Well, with religion, it gets so tricky because it's like it's intertwined, right? They think that is for them. You need this in order to make this next transition. You have to have these things, like, to send you on your way. So religion adds a whole like a bag of onions to the mix, not like a layer, but like a whole ass bag. Just
50 pounds.
Yes, yes. Um, the thing that I really appreciate with the privilege of time and when people have a pod of people to support them is doing our death plan, the death plan that we're working on together. So people get to hear, oh, they get to sit in and be a part of the thought process and the changing of of thought, the evolution of thought. People who will be supporting this human are in on it, and can contribute and can let their feelings be known, or their worries or their thoughts, their ideas, their solutions, be known, and also gain a role in that process, according, along with the consent of the person who's dying. Um, this pretty sweet thing that Zoom has brought us is the ability to do this with people who actually will not be there, but whose heart is there, and who want to be there. So being able to have sisters and brothers who are out of state be a part of the process and understand this is what's going to go on, and hear it from that person's mouth changes so many things. Like we all are then a part of this process. They become a part of it. If they have internet access, we can have a shared drive where you can see my notes of what happened that day. What's going on. People can feel a part of the process. If you don't have internet access and I have consent from the person who's dying, then I can call and update. But really, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that's really beautiful, and it also stops the whole thing of when everybody knows what that person wants. It stops the things where everybody thinks they know what that person wants.
Yeah.
Right? Because based on, I don't know, a conversation they had 30 years ago, or some preconceived notion, if that person is stating what they want, then there's no argument. Right? Then everybody has something to hold on to and do for that person, because I feel like that's something that, as the people who are there as the person's dying, one of the hardest parts is there's nothing you can do. Right? I mean, you can fluff the pillow and warm the blankets. There's only so much of that you can do. And then you feel like you want to do more. You want to give more.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing what they want gives concrete things, even to hold on to for when that person does die. Like, I already know the next steps that we will be doing. And you're not walking into the dark afterwards, which I think that's beautiful. And I have actually written my own obituary like probably 3 or 4 times since I was 20. Right. And people used to laugh at it. And I was like, it takes a lot of the fear out of it for me. Don't think it's because I'm in such a rush to die. It's a really hard concept for me. And it's not about, you know, dying. It's about the fear of, like, what am I missing? Like, you know,
Well, the phases of us, right? What are the phases of us, and who has really been there the whole time? Very few people. Our family sticks us in, like, they put us in this, like, time period. I feel like I will forever be 17 to my mother. And then, and like, if people who met me in my mid-20s or came to my funeral, they'd be like, where's all the pink? Lashanna loved pink. And like, okay, that was like early 2000s Lashanna. No, not anymore. But the phases of us, who knows us most intimately? Us. What is important for us to share out? We can tell. Like the writing of our obituary, like, I encourage folks and work with folks to make notes. What do you want in there? If you don't want to write it yourself, and you want someone else to write it, what are the things that you really want to make sure are in there? And all of the things, may it be like the time that you won a wet t-shirt contest on spring break, like all of the things.
I actually read the New York Times obituaries, And I love the feisty ones, and that's why I do it. It's like people are so interesting. Like there's the big famous ones, but I go for the little ones. Like, what are these people doing? What? And you'll find ones where it's you can tell that grandma had a hand in what was going in her obituary, because it is stuff like that, right? You read the thing, Grace, somebody died at 98, and you think, oh, a lovely little old lady. But if you read it, then she's talking about that, all these wonderful things from when she was young that she's made her bullet points for her obituary. And I was like, damn, yes, this is obituaries do not have to be so like whatever. Like I come away from that always going, yeah, there are some interesting, gosh darn, kick-ass people out in the world that I never got to meet.
Yeah.
But I also love the freedom it gives me when I write my obituary. And like, I don't want to be buried. I think that's an awful waste of tomato planting space. Like, no, please feed people. Don't do that for me. I would love my ashes to be packed into fireworks.
Yeah.
I would love at the end of 3 days of too much drinking and stupid stories about me where you started out that they, how great I was, that you got to the parts that you didn't like about me.
Realness, right?
Yes, like she made me so angry when she would do these things. And then when you're deep in the thick of that, the fireworks start going up. And there I am, showering over all of you because that's like, but that's just me. Like that would horrify other people. Like, oh, that, spreading my ashes in such a manner. But
there are so many super cool things to do with remains. In Washington, where I am at now, we have like a smorgasbord of disposition options. We have a traditional Western modern burial. There's a green burial, natural burial. We have aquamation, which is when I'm explaining it to people, it's a warm bath, right? It's a dissolution of the soft materials with water and lye. But it doesn't emit the carbon that cremation does. So it's
interesting.
It's kinder to the earth. They've been doing aquamation for years and years and years on farms with farm animals.
Oh,
so
nice.
It's newly legal in Washington State for people. And what you get back are bones. And depending on what state you're in, some states are required to pulverize the bones, so you have what people call ashes, and we have regular cremation, which is fire cremation, and we also have natural organic reduction in Washington State, which is a decomposing of the body in some soil and peat moss.
So composting.
Yeah, composting, human composting, 100%.
Oh, there you go. Back to the tomatoes. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So
let me grow the tomatoes for you.
Well, the families can choose to get the soil back.
Oh, that is, I love that.
It's pretty beautiful. The soil that is not taken back all goes for this one organization. The soil will go down to this forest that was overforested by white settlers. And the soil will go to reforest and help give the land nutrients to regrow.
I love that so much.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, there's more than one way to do every damn thing. And so many choices. I had no idea there were so many choices. But I guess they would all vary by state.
They do. Yeah.
Okay.
They vary by state. In some states, you can be buried in your backyard and you don't need a permit. Right. In Washington, you need $25,000 in a land trust. And the idea that we in a typical modern day cemetery, like buy a plot of land for forever, is like such a colonizer mindset. Like to
It's so
think that
bizarre.
from now until whenever, this is my spot for my dead body. Oh, it's so ridiculous.
Right? There are homeless people. Like, I just don't understand. Like that's why it's not right for, like, I have a real problem with me taking up space like that afterwards. Like nobody needs that. After a certain period of time, there's nobody around who remembers me. So why am I?
Yeah,
It's
I
just,
mean, in European countries, there's like there are some spaces where you're buried, but within 7 to 10 years, you're taken out. Your bones are then put in the mausoleum. Like there's some changeover, so they can honor some past traditions, but also see and recognize, like, no, you really don't get that forever. We don't have space like that. Sorry, I don't know what you think is going on, but this earth is really this big. It doesn't get any
right,
bigger.
right, yeah. It's a bit bizarre. So for people who have never ever until this conversation even known that death doulas exist, what bit of information, what summation would you like to give?
I would first like to let people know that death doulas have existed since we have been birthing and dying. Death doulas are in our communities already. Many of them don't walk around with the title of death doula. They are bath care aides. They are social workers. They are neighbors. They are witches and aunts and cousins and uncles. These folks exist around you. And in the current structure that we have today, if you don't know someone and you're in and around you, you can Google and it will bring up who is around you. And what I recommend for folks is to meet any and all of those people, because doulas are really, really individual. The ways that they practice, the ways that they talk, engage, the ideas that they have, they are as different as we are as humans. And so really making sure that you are able to make a connection with someone is the most important thing. I would also like folks to know that when someone says that they're a certified doula, that does not mean anything. It means that they went through a course. What that course contained it isn't set.
There's no regulation over it, right?
There's no regulation. The course could have been 1 day, it could have been 1 year. So
I could make up a course for people to take.
You could, and you could give them a certification, and they could rock that certification on their webpage. And so really, please don't trust labels. Trust the people and trust your gut. Let them know what you want and see if they can help you. Yeah, you have to trust your gut, and be brave about it, because saying yes to needing help is a big deal. But then once you have that person there, and if they're the right fit for you, it's almost like that moment of, I don't even know what this would have been like if it were any different.
Absolutely. In hindsight, I can see that so much. And for me, there was no big, no emotion I'll tether if I had a doula with me during that time period. There's none of that emotional baggage mess that I would have had to try to navigate with that person. Even like with the medical professionals, right? You're still navigating something because you don't want to offend their knowledge and stuff, right? So you pick your words, you choose the questions you ask accordingly. I feel like with a death doula, I would have had just that person who was on both of our teams and meeting our needs individually, that I would be able to say all of the things, no matter how they sounded as they came out of my mouth about how angry I was that I can no longer have the conversations right now with my husband, and he's not even gone yet. I remember calling up my sister and crying, going, it's like he's already gone. And then later I'm beating myself up as I'm trying to fall asleep that night, going, how selfish of me. Right. And in hindsight now, I know it was just, I'm going through my own process, but to have a person where, you know, you have some experience to say, oh, that is so valid, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, that is okay. Tell me more.
Yeah.
What else are you angry about?
Yeah.
Right? I just think it's a very big missing part of our lives that we are not addressing death more fully.
Yeah.
And more.
And then there's ways to, pre-COVID, there were, there could be little gatherings in communities where people are open to talking about things. And I almost like, I invite people to create it themselves. If you have a group of friends, that you can converse with openly and freely and comfortably, have a fucking conversation about what you want. You don't have to have it all written down in legalese to have the conversation, but having a group of people to talk to about it is amazing. It doesn't have to be at a death cafe. It doesn't have to be at some structured thing, but really engaging the people in your life with these conversations. And if people are like, oh, I don't want to talk about that, be like, we are all going to die. That is the one for sure that we can all share. The thing that we can do for each other is give each other this gift of understanding a little bit about what you want. So that when I'm over here saying, I don't know what to do, actually, Shauna said, I want these things. So I know what to do. I don't feel so helpless. So we give each other these things to do, these nuggets to follow. Have the conversations.
Beautiful.
It's harder when you don't.
Yes. Yes. Because then you're just flailing in the dark, trying to figure it out on top of all the emotions.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having this, being open to have this conversation with a complete stranger when we got on here. Thank you so much for being a new friend, Lashanna, and having this conversation with me and opening this door to more people. Hopefully that's what we're doing with these conversations. That's my hope with these conversations, to get people thinking about it and looking at things maybe just a little bit differently. You don't have to change everything, but maybe we open the door. Yep. I want to thank you so very much. I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful day. And if there's any other, I can put people in touch with you if they have questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I will point them back in your direction. And thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Have a wonderful day, new friend.
You too.